All right. So this is a speech again by the Lubavitcher Rebbe that he gave in 1991. And it's talking about topics that are relevant to now. But back then, in that year, it was a Shabbat. The Rebbe gave the speech on Shabbat. And of course, the Hasidim remembered it and they wrote it down afterwards. But on that Shabbat, there were three things that happened together. So they took out three Torah scrolls because they read three different things. One of them was from Vayikra. We're starting this new Torah portion, which is talking about the sacrifices, the book of Leviticus. And also it was the last Shabbat of the month of Adar. So we read Parshat HaChodesh. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. The first commandment in the Torah that God gave over the sanctification of the months to the Jewish people. And the word for month in Judaism, month is the same, in Hebrew, is the same thing as renewal. Chodesh, same thing, Chadash. So God gave the power of renewal to the Jewish people. And also it happened to be that that day itself was the first day of the month of Nisan. It was the first day of the month. So they had to take three Sefer Torahs out. One to read from Vayikra, Leviticus. One to read this Parshat HaChodesh, which is one paragraph in the book of, earlier in the book of Exodus, in the third chapter of Exodus. And another one to read from the book of, in Bamidbar, in what is it, Numbers. There it talks about the sacrifices that were sacrificed on every Rosh Chodesh, every beginning of every month. So three Sefer Torahs we're talking. So the Rebbe is trying to tell us like this. The Rebbe is telling us like this. Again, the same topic as we had before, which that's the topic of Judaism. The purpose of Judaism is to bring everyone to see and feel how good God is, how much God loves us, and accordingly to love God. And when everyone sees how incredibly good God is, and that God is creating us, he's not something separate from us, even though it seems that we are separate from him, but the fact is we are being created every moment by God, and God cares about us and he wants us to feel separate. He creates each and every one of us uniquely, just like everybody's faces are not the same and everybody's fingerprints are the same. Everybody's talents and abilities and personalities are different, unique. Unique. So that's the whole job of the Jewish people, to make everybody feel how incredibly good is that he's creating every single person constantly in a unique way and giving everyone responsibility, unique way, and every instant is different in a unique way. And the whole, that makes life an amazing, how do you say, surprise. And it's up to us to change it, right? That's God's point. He's surprising us, but it's up to us to put good and meaning into every moment. Good. So the Rebbe explained that therefore, God sends us messages all the time from everything, especially through the Torah. But really, everything we see, everything we hear, everything that happens to us, every breath we take, etc., is all a message from God. And not always can we understand what the message is, but at least we can understand that it's from God. And it's not difficult to misinterpret these messages also. That's why we have the Torah. So don't, go overboard too much. They say that in Jerusalem, there's what's called the Messiah syndrome, Moshiach syndrome. People go to Jerusalem, all of a sudden they feel a feeling of, wow, I am special, I am unique, I must be the Messiah, and they put on robes or whatever, or play harps, I don't know, whatever they do over there. Which, listen, there's, it's a Meshugas, but there's 2.5 billion people that believe in a Meshuggah that thought that. Right? They thought that 2.5 billion people are convinced by this incredible, falsehood. So, you can get inspired, but don't take it in the wrong direction. I mean, you'll get 2.5 billion followers, but and be wrong, and be wrong. So the Rebbe is trying to tell us the Torah is here to tell us that this inspiration is good. You're supposed to feel it, but the Torah is sending us messages how to do it, how to, how do you say, to direct this inspiration and this love in a proper way. Okay, so we said, first of all, the Jewish people have given the power to go out of Egypt. Before the Jews got out of Egypt, they were given the power of renewal to jump. To jump out, that's Passover. Pesach means jumping. The word Pesach means to jump. Like it says, God jumped over the houses of the Jews and jumped. To go totally out of yourself. Step number one. Then there's another thing, which is called Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh means that it's part of the week. It's one of the days of the week, right? The Rosh Chodesh is one of the days of the week, one of the days of the month, and it came on Shabbat. That means that we can bring this ability to jump out of ourselves, which is not normal, but you have to do it sometimes, to bring it into our day-to-day life. That constantly we will feel that everything is new. Like I said, surprise. And then that's Rosh Chodesh. Then the third thing is we're reading from Vayikra, and this is where we ended up yesterday. I'll answer the question after the class is finished. Vayikra el Moshe, that God called to Moses. That's this week's Torah reading, right? God called to Moshe. V'yadaber Hashem elav. God spoke to him Oel Moed, from the tent of meeting. The tent of Oel Moed was the outer part of the tent, where it's called the holy. The inside room, that was where the ark was with the tablets that Moses received on Mount Sinai, and there was the revelation, and Mount Sinai was there, and that was called the Holy of Holies. There nobody went. Only the high priest could go in just for a couple of minutes on Passover, on Yom Kippur. That was the Holy of Holies. Outside of that was a room called the Oel Moed. The Oel Moed, that was the outer room in the tabernacle and in the temple. And there was the candle, the menorah was on the left, and there was bread, 12 loaves of bread were on the right, and there was a small golden incense altar in the middle. That was called the Oel Moed. Only the Kohen could go in there. Only the priests could go in there. And Moses would stand outside, and God would call to him. You would hear God's voice coming from the Oel Moed. Vayikra Hashem. And that's how the Jewish people got the messages through in the course of their traveling in the desert. So it says, God called to Moses on Mount Sinai. You can ask a question 1 second. I thought that on Mount Sinai, God gave the whole Torah. It says, yes, he gave the whole Torah on Mount Sinai, but it was in like a coded form. There's different answers to this, but it was like encapsulated form, like a seed. And that God revealed it gradually as the Torah went on. He revealed what it was in the Torah, but Moses received the whole entire Torah in Mount Sinai. Nevertheless, God revealed that he called out to him from the Oel Moed. That's this week's Torah of Leviticus. That's how it starts off. Vayikra el Hashem, that he called. It doesn't say who called, by the way. It doesn't say God called. Vayikra, and he called to Moses, and God spoke to him from the tent of meeting. Perish, what is it? What is this calling? Perish Kriya Zu. What does it mean that God called to Moses? Just say it all the time. It always says Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe, that God spoke to Moses. What does it mean that he called to Moses? Why did he have to call to him? But Moses was involved in his, like you have nowadays, and you stop in your car, you're driving, and you stop the person in front of us. You almost always have to honk, at least a little beep, a little honk, because people get involved in their cellular phones. They get involved in their cellular phones. They don't care if the light turns red, green, purple, whatever the color is. They're involved in their cellular phones. They're looking, they're talking, they're texting, they're whatever they're doing. Maybe that was Moses was doing. He was looking at his cellular phone or something. God had to call to him. Hey, Moses, what is this calling? Why did God call to Moses? God was speaking to Moses all the time. It never says that God called him. It says, Vayadaber Hashem el Moshe. God spoke to Moses. That's the whole entire Bible. All of a sudden here he called him. What does he call him for? Says the Rebbe, Pirish in Kriya, this calling, Hainu Ha'ora, this is a ray, V'hashpa, and a influence from God to Moses. Kadei, in order, by means of this, Yochel Lalot, that he will be able to go into the tent of meeting. God called to him, just like we finished learning in the Kuti Torah, that God starts off, he initiates it, he turns the thing on. Hainu ba'avodas kol echad ve'echad miYisrael. The service of each and every Jew. Shahari HaTorah. What does this mean to every single Jew? This is talking about Moses. The Torah is because the Torah is eternal and it's relevant. These levels, the Torah is relevant. All these things that we're talking about is relevant also now. There's a Moses inside of each one of us, and there's a holy temple inside of each one of us, and there's a call, God calls to Moses from each side of one of us. All these levels are by us now. Sheyesh b'kol adam. There is inside of every human being. Bechinas Moshe, a little bit of Moses. Bechinas dat. What is Moses? Moses is reality, connection. Shehu mamshech bechinat yichud. This is what draws down unity of God below. That it will be resting and revealed in the soul of a person. Sheyeh bechinat oel moed, and the soul of the person. That's what's called a tent of meeting. Okay, this idea, what is dat? What does dat mean? Dat means, let's say, reality, connection, right? Let's say they say, someone just, fell into the sea. Oh, this is really terrible. You look and say, it's your son. What? My son, he jumps, he does everything he can. What happened? He knew that somebody fell in before. He knew it. So he said, oh, maybe I should do something. Maybe I'll call the phone. He found out that it was his son. All of a sudden, he snaps into action, right? And he'll do anything. He runs down to this. He jumps over. He gets into a boat. He throws a life raft, anything that he can. But somebody gives you a check, and the check is not written to you. It's a check for $1 million. Mr. Gerb, you won $1 million. It's yours. So my name is not Mr. Gerb. Says, who is? Oh, 1 second. Oh, there's a mistake on this check. There's a little bit of dirt here. Not Mr. Gerb, Mr. Gerl. Gerl. It wasn't a B. It wasn't a B. It was a L. That's me. That's me. All of a sudden he gets excited. What happened? He saw a check. He knew it was money, but all of a sudden he felt it's me. All of a sudden he gets excited. The same thing with God. We just finished learning. God is creating us. He's creating me. He's creating you. Wonderful ideas. Interesting. Very interesting. This Hasidic stuff is a very interesting philosophy. I don't think you can really find this anywhere else. Very interesting. Does it affect your day-to-day life? No, just 1 second. I just ordered a cheeseburger over here. But God says you shouldn't eat cheeseburgers. Come on, so let him not eat cheeseburgers. This is for religious people. But God is creating you. You just got excited about that. God is creating you. And then you shouldn't, listen, it's just an idea. It's not really, but he's really creating you. And he's the same guy is giving the Torah. And in the Torah, it says you should not eat cheeseburgers, milk and meat, right? That's what it says. And say, come on, that's not what it says. It doesn't say that. It says you shouldn't eat it. And you really care what it says in the Torah? If it did say you shouldn't eat milk and meat, you wouldn't eat? Or you're just using that as an excuse? Listen, if that's really what it says, then I'll think about it. In other words, that means it connects to you. It becomes real to you. You want to tell me that God is creating me right now, and this God that's creating me is creating that he loves me, and this God gave the Torah, and the rabbis are the only ones that know properly how to interpret the Torah, and this God that's creating me right now, and the rabbis want to appreciate it, he's telling me that I shouldn't eat a cheeseburger? That's really what he wants? He says, yes, not for me. Or maybe he says, wow, that's really something. That's all he wants from me, just not to eat this cheeseburger? That's it. He's giving me my eyes and my ears and my nose. Yeah, even if you eat the cheeseburger, he'll continue giving you good. But that's not what he wants. Now that's dat. It snaps. A person says, if I eat the cheeseburger, will I go to hell? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. That's not what God wants. I should do it. God doesn't want me to eat the cheeseburger, huh? Maybe it's bad for me. Maybe something bad's going to happen to me, huh? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe, yeah. You see people eat cheeseburgers, nothing bad happens to them. It's not good, that's for sure. But on the other hand, that's not the point. God doesn't want you to do it. If you care about God, if you love God, then you won't. So you say, listen, I love myself. I love cheeseburgers. Why should that? That means you connect. All of a sudden it connects. Wow, God is real. He's really creating me. He really cares. The rabbis, what they said in the Torah is really true. I'm a Jew. I'm not going to eat it. That's called dot. He connects. He makes the connection. It's my check. It's my son. He feels it's, that's what it means that God gave to Moses this call. This is the level of dot, connection. He gave Moses the power to go into the inner, approach the inner sanctum. What's the inner sanctum? Our soul. God is giving this to each and every one of us. He's calling to each and every one of us that we should make this connection. That's called the noadity, that God, noadity, the language, otiot, the level, noadity, what does it mean? Leida, to know God, to feel the truth. Shehu chaya chayim, that God is the life of lives. Ein od milvado, and there's nothing except for him. There's nothing except for God. There's not God, and there's also, people, and there's also me, and there's nothing except for God. I mean, that's really freaky. I mean, how can it really be? I mean, and God wants us to be separate, and he wants us to feel ourselves, but he wants us to use our separateness and ourself to serve him. That's called love. That's also called happiness. If you don't feel, godliness, then you don't feel yourself. Then there's no. Like it says, ani hu. Like it says that I am the one. Says God, I am all. Shagam shemikrazu. This sentence lo nirmar al atid. It's not talking about in the future. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hagam shemikrazu nirmar al atid. Even though that it says in the future, in the days of the Moshiach, that everyone will see and feel God, but this power is given to every single Jew to attach his thoughts to God, but kesher amitz v'chazak, with a true, deep connection, sharua be'enei basar, that you can actually see with your physical eyes. What does it mean you see with your physical eyes? That everything in the world is a miracle. Me'ayin v'dugma, something like what it's going to be in the future. Like we see, that's what Vayikra is. That's what we're reading in the Torah portion. So, hachodesh hazeh lochem, that gives us power to jump out of ourselves, and that we sanctify the new month. That gives us power to jump out of ourselves every moment to feel it's real. And Vayikra means that God is giving us the power to do it. He's helping us, each and every one of us. Kamudras, like it's expressed in the continuation of the parsha, and we'll see next couple of weeks we'll learn Parsha Shmini. Shmini is Shmini L'Miluim. It's the 8th day of the inauguration of the tabernacle. What day was that? What was the 8th day when the tabernacle actually became open for business? It was the first day of Nisan. And that was when Shabo Hayayin, that's when God called Moses. That's what, on this date. This is the day that the tabernacle opened up. That there came out fire in front of God, that all the people saw, and they all sang out, and they fell on their faces. It says it was a revelation of God's presence, like it was in Mount Sinai, a completion in the service. And all of a sudden came running in there the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, Kalat and Nefesh. The sons of Aaron had 4 sons. The 2 older ones, the choice ones, called Nadav and Avihu, they got so excited about the revelation of God that they ran into the Holy of Holies. They were the Kohanim, they were the sons of the high priest, right? They thought that somehow or other that they could do it. They were wrong, but they so much loved God, and they wanted to come close to him, and that they ran in kolos and nefesh, that their souls went out of their bodies as they died before God. His 2 sons died. This was the first day that the tabernacle was open. There was this terrible tragedy. The dugma, so Ba'avod is called Bnei Israel, so it was in every single Jew, that we're all called Bnei Aaron. The Jews are called the sons of Aaron. That we can, like it says, Heyotem Talmidim Shel Aaron. It says in Pirkei Avot that we should be pupils of Aaron. And the rabbis say, anyone who teaches someone, it's like he gave birth to him. So what is Aaron's thing? He loved peace. He pursued peace. He loved the creations, and he brought them close to Torah. And it explains in the Tanya, in the 32nd chapter, even Jews, that the only good thing you can say about them is that God created them. There's some Jews that only God could create a weird thing like that. Nevertheless, you have to love them and bring them close to the Torah. She'avodatam, b'tachlis hashlemus, is the ultimate completion of kalot nefesh, of self-sacrifice. B'yotem neshamas begufim davka. That's what we say in our prayers. The Jewish people are called Mekadshei Shemecha. They're willing to sanctify God's name. Yesh more. That's what we can say, that now that we're reading these three books, right? Like I say, back then when the Rebbe spoke, these three books were read on Shabbat. But now we also read from these three books, but not all together on the Shabbat. In this past Shabbat, we read two of them. We read the Parshas HaChodesh, and no, actually we read Yakel Pikude. We didn't. We read each one separately. Each one will be separately. We read last Shabbat. We read from Parshat HaChodesh, and in a couple days we're going to read the Rosh Chodesh, and this Shabbat we're going to read Vayikra. So we read it on three separate days. This, whether we read these three different books, this is not a chazakah. The number three means, like we said, it's a supposition that something we can suppose that a thing is permanent. The three things that happen mean that thing is permanent. We can suppose it's going to happen again. This is not just we can suppose that there's going to be miracles and that we should act in this world in a miraculous way, but what? Also these three ways of serving God in a miraculous way, right? Well, that's what we said. HaChodesh Elochem means jumping. The sanctifying of the moon means bringing that jumping into our day-to-day life. And Vayikra means that God helps us. He pulls it in. Number one, we read Parshat HaChodesh. And this is the whole thing of miracles, right? God, miracles, like we said, jumping out, going out of Egypt. Then we read Rosh Chodesh. This means bringing down miracles into day-to-day life. And number three is reading Vayikra means this is miracles that become regular to us, that God calls to us and he changes our nature so that we're used to living in a life of miracles. Listen, if you live in a life of miracles that you allow God to surprise you, so life becomes very interesting. You look forward to waking up in the morning because you don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes a lot of people, if they don't know what's going to happen, it's a reason to be depressed, right? A person, God forbid, you get fired from your job. A person gets fired from his job. They usually have a job you go to. People need you. There's something you get paid, but now you don't know what to do. You have nobody, right? That's why the Lubavitcher Rebbe was against retirement in general, because you can wake up, you can do whatever you want, but you don't know what you want. So you wake up in the morning, you don't know what to do. But if you live a life that everything is a surprise, then you're sort of happy that you don't know what's going to be. You're sort of happy. And let's say they don't fire you from your job, you have a job, but you get used to the job, the same old job, right? But every moment can be brand new. You meet people, things happen. Instead of being, closed and depressed to the world, you never say good morning to anybody. Nobody ever talks to you. You don't talk to anybody. That's the way you want it. That's good. It's not good. The fact of the matter is everything, if we see that every moment is being created by God, so God presents to us, he brings to us challenges, opportunities, surprises, right? Interesting things happen all the time. Positive things. At least you spend less time looking at negative things in the cellular phone and what do they call it? Public media. This is hinted also in our Haftorah. The Haftorah in the beginning, it talks about the connection of the Nasi, of the king with the Jewish people. V'yesh lomar, we can say that the hint in this is that the service of the Jewish people is in a way of nesiut, of kingship, royalty, elevating themselves above the world, above normal way of looking at the world, in a way that is what's called miraculous. Not only but their service in a way of nesius, elevation, nimshachas is drawn down even into our day-to-day life. When you see a person, you're happy to see them. Until it comes in a way that it's regular. Chukos olam tamid. Olas tamid. Everything is constant, right? Everything is constant. Suddenly you feel it's a constant wonder and a miracle, everything that happens. I mean, this is so very necessary. I mean, exactly how to do this and how to, put it. But there's a lot of stories about children that commit suicide. There's in Israel also. There's bullying. There's cyberbullying. There's children that commit suicide. Right? I have a grandson that he's very interested in this. He really wants to bring this to the awareness of children that are bullied for whatever reason, and because they're bullied, so they don't want to wake up the next morning, and they just. But on the other hand, if people really feel that God loves them and they really feel that life presents good things, then at least they'll have a little opening to take this pressure cooker of life that presses on us and makes us crazy. There's a little opening. You can let it out. And what is letting out? I can pray. I can wait for a surprise. A surprise doesn't happen. Okay, it didn't happen, but every moment is a brand new surprise. You see a flower, you see this. There's a story about Rebbe Akiva that he was potentially he was a very genius person, but actually he was very dull. And it took him a long time even to learn how to read Hebrew. And finally, he just was so dejected and depressed that he went out and he sat in a field just to be alone because he didn't know what to do. He really wanted to learn the Torah, and he really felt that the Torah was a really good thing. And he had a wife that was encouraging him. And Rabbi Akiva, in a way, was such a loser in the beginning, and he was so that when his wife, she realized his potential, when she married him, her father, she came from a very rich family. Her father said, "What are you marrying this scarecrow for? What are you getting this guy? If you don't leave him, I'm throwing you out of the house." And he did. He threw her out of the house. And they had to sleep in a barn, a whole long stories. And Rabbi Akiva said, "Listen, my wife believes in me so much, and I so much want to learn Torah, and it's not going. It's just not going. I'm just nowhere. I don't understand the classes. I don't understand anything." And he went in the field, and he sat all like dejected and everything like that. And suddenly he heard a tick, 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 tick. And he turned. What did he see? From somewhere was dripping water on a rock. And he saw that the water had made a hole in the rock where it was dripping. And it was a hard rock. It wasn't something. So he thought to himself, listen, is something as hard as a rock can be permeated by something so soft as water. So for sure, something as soft as my mind and my heart can be permeated by something so powerful as the Torah. And he went back and he learned, and he became a super genius, and the whole Torah depends on him. And it's amazing stories about Rebbe Akiva. But the point is, God sent him a message, a positive message. And so it is with each and every one of us. God, if we just are open, but life is a surprise. That's what and you can look up, I wrote a song. You want a song? I get classes. What can I do? I'm hyperactive. Thank God, when I was young, they didn't have these definitions. They probably would have given me all sorts of PTSD and also that. Anyways, I still have a bit of that now. So I wrote a rap song. You can look it up in YouTube. You look up Tuvia Bolton, Elokut. Look it up, Elokut. Anyway, one of the verses is, life is a surprise. Just realize that the only reason you're alive is just to advertise Elokut, godliness. And then we see that everything is a big surprise. Everything is a big miracle, a pleasant surprise. Let God surprise us, and we'll all come, God willing, to be happy and reveal Moshiach now. And now let's do the Dvar Malchut. 1 second.